Good morning, Brendan with the Homes in Orlando team at Next Home Neighborhood Realty, and this is I'm sorry.
Wait! It's still Joseph, just sans
Oh,
beard,
it
no
is.
beard.
Okay,
It's
Joseph
gone. The
Dionne.
beard is gone for like 2 weeks. I'm seeing how quick I can grow it back.
I was a little shocked this morning. I was like, "Holy! I haven't seen you in 4 years."
I know,
Man.
like everybody's telling me that I have to change that bearded LO moniker to cleanly shaved LO.
That's true. That's true. Well, good morning, everybody. And again, we are the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. We come to you weekly, bringing you news on the housing market. And this one was kind of easy because it's been a shock the past week of what's been going on. And it's kind of interesting because a headline that I saw last night while I was catching up on my news really kind of hits home to exactly what's going on. This is from CNBC, that mortgage rates are surging faster than expected, prompting economists to lower their home sales forecasts. Yeah. Boy, have they jumped. You want to tell us how much they've jumped?
Yeah, let's just talk. We saw almost a 0.25% jump in rate in the last week.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a massive amount. And then in the last 7 weeks, we've seen almost on a national average, the last 7 weeks, we've seen over 1% gain in rates. Like those are huge adjustments. And it goes right to exactly what this article is saying. It's kind of like, hey, if rates go up, affordability goes down. Like you can't buy as much home when you've got a higher interest rate.
Yep.
You know, so there's going to be less buyers, especially in a marketplace potentially where prices are so much higher.
Yep. And I think, well, you and I have seen it with one of our clients, is they basically have had to back out of the market completely.
Yeah.
They renewed their lease. Nicole, they've renewed her lease because we originally started them out at 3%, and great people. Actually put them under contract a couple times, but sometimes people are looking for that perfect house, and there isn't. There truly never is a perfect house.
Well, it's really hard too. Like when and I hate to say it, it's like when you're looking at something, you're like, oh man, like the market's going up, but rates keep going down. Like I can hold off a little bit, and the problem is if you're not like actually the industry experts, like if you're not in the industry, if it's not your profession, if you're a buyer or seller, you don't have the full picture all the time.
Correct. And now with the rate jumping close, I think the last you quoted was possibly 4.75, and it took her down from roughly about, I think she was like 325, and we're really starting to look down now more in that 250, 275, and keeping her at a debt ratio that will still get her to qualify.
Yeah.
And in that market here in Orlando, it's almost non-existent right now. It just really is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
And then I, looking at, I've got a couple clients looking out in the Deltona area, which is a little more blue collar, a little more affordable. You're starting to see our average days on market have gone from 18 to 30.
Okay.
So you're seeing things stay a little bit longer because people have to be a little more careful.
Yeah. Is it still and is it still like, is it average days on the market, like it's 0 days and then it's just not getting offers, or is it 0 days, gets an offer, but then deal falls through, comes back active on the market?
Boy, that's a great question. You're actually seeing them go through the weekend. So it's maybe 7 to 10 days. People are double checking their numbers. But what you're also seeing, and I'm glad you brought this up, is about 1 in 5 deals right now, about 20%, are falling through. And a lot of times the agents will put financing fell through.
Oh man, Because they want to specify that it wasn't the property.
Right. They want to specify it wasn't the property. So, and you can usually tell because most inspections are done in 5 to 7 days these days. And you kind of look at when the cancellation was sent.
Yep.
And a lot of these right now are dropping off 28, 29, 30 days into the contract.
Oh, man.
That tells you that it's financing, that they may have been qualified. I mean, even a month ago, they were probably qualified at what, 4%?
I mean, yeah.
And they've taken maybe a 3/4, even a 1%, depending on their credit score, price increase.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I don't qualify for that house anymore.
Yeah. And that's the hard part is like, it doesn't mean that buyer doesn't qualify in general. They qualify for less home. And the problem is how many people in this market, especially in this market, it's really hard to be like, I'm going to, for the average person to be like, you know what, like I'm going to buy below my means because you're like, all right, I qualify for 300. Well, you're not finding much at 300.
No.
So you're stretching it to just to find that home to buy. And you're kind of, it's just such an interesting marketplace that we're in is because rents were rising as fast as everything else was rising. So it was still a positive to buy that home. And it still is. Like, don't get me wrong. It's still 100% is a positive to be a homeowner. But the marketplace has shifted a little bit in regards to rates and qualifying, how everything's happened. It's happened so fast. And when it happens this fast, there's a lot of casualties. There's a lot of casualties.
Yeah. And you feel awful because it's like, okay, we're qualified on Monday. I mean, literally had to call you on Wednesday. Hey, I saw rates took a jump. Are they still okay?
Yep.
And a lot of people don't lock their rates in, smartly until they've actually got a house. And then they lock in. And then, sometimes you'll get the loan officer. Oh, well, hold on. I think rates are going to drop. And it's just like, in this market,
we have a little saying around our office is if you like it, lock it. Like, we're all about like, hey, if the rate good, you're happy with the payment, let's lock it in. You don't want to risk this marketplace right now. You just don't want to see something adjust because the hard part is if you look at it and, there's some industry experts out there. I won't mention names. And I subscribe to some of these industry experts to see what their thought process, and they talk about rate and market. And when it's like they're flipping a coin and, and I'm like, man, they're not even getting it right most of the time. Like I can't sit there confidently and say I'm an expert. I'm subscribing to people that are 10 times more expert than I am on these things to get my knowledge. If they're wrong more than half the time right now, well, you know what? Like, let's get that rate locked in and let's move on because at least if we lock in, we know you qualify and we're going to be able to get you close in the home. But if we don't lock you in and rates get worse and now you don't qualify, like, that's the tough part. So we're taking a lock first approach and we're very cautious on any of our clients that say, you know what, I want to flow. Like, I want to see if the market bounces back. And it's like, it could. Like, you're absolutely right. It could. But the reality is there's so many pieces right now that kind of are pushing. You see the federal fund rate goes up, and now it's not a direct correlation, but it has an impact on rates. Like, we saw the market reacted in the last week since the Fed announcement very negatively. And you would have thought, in my mind, I was like, man, I don't know how bad it's going to be because I'm pretty sure we all knew this was happening. It's what we expected. We built it into pricing.
It's built in, yes.
And it wasn't.
Yep.
And then you got Ukraine, and that's continuing to go on. And now we're looking at what? What are we looking at right here? 10-year Treasury note?
10-year Treasury bond. You had mentioned that, it may not. But if you look at, the 10-year Treasury bond since January, you may get a little bitty dip. But in general, it's just been climbing. And, one thing we try and teach our people is, if you kind of want to watch rates, watch the 10-year T because it's a good gauge of where the interest rates are going to be. If the yield goes up, rates are generally going to go up. If the yield goes down, rates are generally going to go down. And we're just, we're seeing here again this morning, 10-year T's up a little bit. Doesn't mean a a price change today? Maybe, maybe not. But it's always a good symbol for us to, to gauge kind of where it is, But it's something that I saw on a Facebook group for realtors the other day. Yeah. Actually, it was this morning. Is an agent had put on there, my client qualified at 3.5 and now she's quoted 4.75. What can I do to get her out of the contract? And that's like, ooh.
Well, I mean, if she still qualifies, it really comes down to nuts and bolts of how, like, I know a lot of agents, you have the opportunity on the financing section to put a rate, but most agents leave it blank or put like prevailing or something.
Yep.
And can you do anything with that? Like, if I write prevailing rate, there's not much. Can I do something?
No. What's prevailing rate? Prevailing rate is the rate of the day. It's what it is. And a lot of people don't know this and don't understand this, that on page 2 of the Florida FAR contract, there's a section where you define your financing.
Yep.
The client is using financing. They're doing FHA, conventional. Standard is a 30-year. You might change that. Then it actually has a line in there about the interest rate. And it'll say that as long as I don't have it in front of me, something like and the rate shall not exceed.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just put prevailing rate. Well, in a volatile market like this, I should be talking to you and running scenarios. Hey, we're not locked, Joe. If this jumps to 5.25 all of a sudden, can you run them and make sure what their payment is and that they're still going to qualify and that they're going to be okay with that rate?
Yeah.
And that they're going to be okay with that payment. Because, going from 4 to 5, that's a big difference in payment. All of a sudden, you're taking a huge jump. And it's something that as agents and as lenders, we got to start thinking about is, okay, my job is always to protect my client. And now, all of a sudden I'm doing a conventional, I'm going to have to think in there, okay, if it goes up 1/4 point, which as we've seen, in 3 days, it went up 1/4 point the past week.
Yeah.
You got to protect your client. Hey, if it goes up 1/4 point, what happens to my client? Can they still qualify? If we're running if you're telling me, Brendan, oof, man, I got this approved at a 52% DTI.
We're tight on this one.
Yeah, we're tight on this one. We jump 1/4. I don't know. It's like, but you also got to let them know that, hey, rates are volatile right now. Here's where we are today. But if it jumps to this up 1/4 point, this is how it's going to change your payment. Yeah. Let them know, and just let them know it. Warn you, because it has been so volatile.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've talked a lot to my clients about is, typically in times like, and I'm not saying this is going to happen. We've got the 2-year, we've got the 10-year. They're flirting close together. We might see an inverted, right? Like which is typically a lead indicator to recession potentially, right? Doesn't mean we are, but where we are with rates so volatile is, what if we see a pullback? And I'm telling a lot of my clients is right now, don't pay points, don't buy down the rate. Because if it gets worse, you still got a great rate. Like if rates continue to get higher, you still got a good rate. But if they improve, you don't want to be locked in and be like, man, I spent 3 points I spent 2 points to get this rate down to here. And, a year later, you might be able to refinance and get a lower rate and get, with it, like, you don't want to basically lock yourself out of being able to have that opportunity. Yeah. And usually those points, the savings monthly might not dictate the cost up front. So it's definitely something to look at. And again, we're at 0.24 difference, right?
Yeah. Again, this is a leading indicator to a recession as opposed to a lagging indicator. Yeah. A lot of people always go, well, you got to have 2 quarters of negative growth. Yes, that's correct. That's the definition of a recession. But historically, when you look at this yield between the 10-year and the 2-year,
Yep.
It is a leading indicator of a recession coming.
Yeah.
And you can see, I mean, really since February, I think we talked about it in January.
Yeah,
but since February, boy, has it taken a dive.
Yeah, exactly. And like, and just like for everybody that's on here or watching this in the future, like, just so you understand, the reason why this is like kind of a lead indicator is basically what they're saying is they're saying that, hey, that outlook for a 10-year is worse. We don't think there's a good outlook. We think that there's going to be a poor return, or the marketplace is going to be poor. So we're not willing to pay, like the people issuing we're not willing to pay a higher rate than we would on a 2-year, because we think that right now 2-year is shorter. So we feel more comfortable with shorter.
We feel comfortable tying our money up.
We don't feel comfortable tying up our money for 10-year. Like,
yes,
that's kind of that's very layman. Is they're looking down the road and saying, hey, I think I can see 2 years, but 10 years looks kind of scary. And I just see a whole bunch of fog. I don't know what it's going to be. So that's what happens when that 10-year drops below that 2-year.
Yep. And then something you shared with me this morning that I thought was interesting, and I'd like you to go over, is when we've seen this kind of historical jump in rates in the past, where did you see the leveling out of the rates?
Yeah, well, this is actually kind of, and I thought this was kind of like a cool graphic that we saw. And you see like each of those boxes, these are 30-year fixed mortgage rates. So these are the rates. And you've got a calendar from 2013 to basically current. And you can see each one of those red boxes is basically a 7-week time period. So that 7-week time period. And you can see that we saw a massive jump in this 7-week time period here. Biggest that we've seen since basically 2013. And what you notice, though, is every time we saw the market bump like this, it turned around and did start to settle. So, we're not quite, I don't think we're quite at the top yet. Like, meaning like, I don't know if we've hit that ceiling and if we're going to bounce under, like, because we kind of like, we kind of, we went up, and you see, like, if you go back into 2021, where it started to go up right before that last red box, it went up and then it went back down, right?
Yep.
But so right now we're trying to find where the ceiling is.
Yep.
So, this week, Monday, Tuesday, we saw rates go crazy. We saw everything kind of jump up. Wednesday, we saw a little bit of a cooling off. Like, we saw some positive indicators, like everything kind of trended the right way on Wednesday. Today, it's not looking the same. It looks like today might be, at least preemptive. Looks like rates might continue to climb a little bit. So I don't know if we've hit that ceiling, but I think once we hit the ceiling and then we do and we top it and we hit it and we touch it a couple times, we should hopefully bounce back off of it downward to get a little bit of relief on this. And that's what I want to see, is kind of like a little bit of stabilization across the market. For us is a time period where we're not having rates continually climb. And I think that's going to be really important for the housing market as a whole as well. That's going to allow the market to start to stabilize out as well for home sales. Yeah,
especially going into the spring, because this is really boom time for a lot of people, because you got a lot of families who getting ready to move, end of the school, getting close to the end of school, and they're going to start looking. And it really is the boom time. So, for inventory here in Orlando, I think our biggest problem is we're still getting the influx of people. And our inventory is still extremely low.
Yeah.
We're starting to see the days on market creep up, which is usually a good sign for inventory. I think it's, one, because rates are going up. 2, I think we've lost some buyers. We've definitely lost some buyers. In the market. I got a house under contract on Sunday, where we normally may have had 10 offers. We were competing against 2 others.
Okay.
So we may start seeing less multiple offers, or it's funny to say, but less multiple offers. Instead of having 10 or 12, we may be seeing 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Which still multiple offer situation still makes it competitive.
Still competitive.
But I'd rather compete against 2 or 3 than 10 or 12 any day of the week. Yeah. So, and there's still a big influx of investment capital coming into Orlando as well.
Yeah.
Still competing.
And that's where I think we create that little bit of a kind of like where we're different than a lot of the nation. There's a lot of metropolitans that are very similar to us, but it's it's so attractive to be an investor in this marketplace because you have the ability to do short-term rental, you have the ability to do long-term, and the short-term rental reduces the amount of long-term rentals, which helps push long-term rental prices up. Like you have all these little things that combat. It's a destination city. You got all, and they basically all kind of just amplify. It helps build prices up for prices to increase, helps create an environment that rents continue to increase. Do we start to see it slow down a little bit? Maybe. I think that's where we're at right now, is we're going to see it start to slow down a little bit. Doesn't mean we're going down. We're just seeing it slow down.
I think we're going to see we'll see a little bit of a slowdown, which that's, hey, much needed. Quite honestly, because you mentioned rents, and Orlando was number 2 in the nation last year. Miami was number 1. Yeah. Miami was number 1 at 38%. Orlando was number 2 at 20%.
20%. So if you were
good time to be a landlord.
if you had rent, you were locked into a $2,000 a month rent. This year you're what,
2,400.
My goodness.
Yep.
Yeah. Still better to buy a home.
Yes. Still better to buy a home.
Still better to buy a home. No, awesome stuff. I think we covered some great stuff and really dived into some detail. That was really, really important to talk about, and just kind of sharing that information, knowledge. Thanks so much, Brendan, for bringing in.
Thank you. It's just, I enjoy doing this with you. I hope we're bringing helpful information to people. Again, any questions, reach out to Joe or I. We're always here to answer questions. Always willing to have a nice conversation with people.
And don't worry, the beard is coming back. Temporary change. Temporary. Just had to remind myself how beautiful I was with the beard. So
is that what it was? Yeah.
There we go.
All right, man. Hey, have a wonderful day. Try and stay dry. We're supposed to get rained on all day today. Take care. Bye-bye.